Okay, human response to the environment. My name is Mr. Mpepu. I welcome you to my session. Today's date 16 April 2024, Tuesday there, and the time there 24 minutes past 1. Sanbonani, Dumelani, Afsheni, hello. To those who are coming here for the second time or the returning viewers, I would like to appreciate you. Those who subscribed, I would also like to appreciate you. Those who are new here, feel free to subscribe, feel free to comment, and feel free to like. Today we'll be dealing with neurons and reflex arc, following our yesterday class or our yesterday session where we were talking about a response to the environment. We did the brain and we did the spinal cord, which is the part of the central nervous system. So welcome to my class. Those who are subscribing, Ibangli subscriber, and those who are liking, like before you can even go on, just like to show that you are here, right? Week 5, we are in week 5, Tuesday. We are moving on, responding to the environment. We did human nervous system yesterday, central nervous system. Today we'll be dealing with the nerves and reflex arc, this part here, right? So in a week we have to cover all this. Friday we'll do the disorder. We have our plan Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right? Monday we did introduction and the response, central nervous system. Tuesday we are going to do nerve, those connectors that I was talking about, those wires, and then Wednesday we are going to do question and answer, and then Thursday we are going to do a peripheral nervous system, autonomic, this part here, and then Friday we'll be covering disorders, right? Taking this from our textbook, being guided by our textbook, right? So from CAPS document, we did this yesterday. We talked about this. We talked about how we have to cover this in a weekly timetable or in a weekly slot, right? And then you'll agree with me, or yesterday we concluded our term 2 week topic number 1, and then to this week we are saying, or we are going to deal, or this week's week 5, week 6, week 7, we are going to deal with paper 1, 54 marks, responding to the environment by humans, right? Term 2, 4 weeks. So yesterday we did introduction, we did human nervous system, we did central nervous system. If you missed this, go back and watch my video, right? We did brain, we did spinal cord, we talked about cerebrum, we talked about cerebellum, corpus callosum, and medulla oblongata, and the functions that are being controlled here, right? And then from there we talked about the stimuli. We did a lot of things, right? We did a lot of things. You can go there. Today we'll be doing nervous system, we'll be doing the neurons, the structure and functioning of the nerve. What are these nerves? We talked about them yesterday, or nerves. We have the one going upside, one going taking the message to the brain, and one taking the message from the brain to the effector. The receptors, the effectors, the what we talked about yesterday, right? So these two here, they make up a nerve, right? So we are going to learn today with these nerves, they sense and they carry signals from, to, and from all the parties of the bodies, right? And are made up of neurons, right? So today we are going to learn these two, a sensory neuron and a motor neuron, and the one that is between here, which is called the interneuron, the one that it's going to do the interpretation of a message, right? Yesterday I did example, I spent 1 hour 30 minutes trying to explain to you the process of a receptor and the cable taking the message to the brain, and the brain interpreting a message and bringing back to the effector, right? Inside the brain we also have another neuron here. We also have another wire that this sensory neuron of ours is going to send message to the brain, and the interneuron is going to send this message to the motor neuron, and the motor neuron is going to send it to our receptors, our effectors. We talked about this yesterday, right? Then today you're going to learn the functions of the sensory and the motor neurons, right? The function of these two, we can refer to them as wires, the part of a sensory neuron and the motor neuron, right? And we are also going to concentrate on the structure and the functions of the parts of sensory neuron and the motor neuron, right? When now you know the structure of a sensory neuron, you can be able to differentiate it to the structure of a motor neuron, right? And then concentrating on the nucleus and the cell body. Cell body, a nucleus inside a cell body, and the cytoplasm, and the myelin sheath, which is the protection of these wires, and the axon, which is the last part of the wire inside itself, and the dendrites, which is the first here. We will learn about this, right? We have 3 types of neurons. Today we are going to learn all about these 3, how they function and how do they bring upon the change. We'll be learning that under a reflex arc. right? In a reflex arc, you should be able to differentiate, or you should be able to define what is a reflex action and what is a reflex arc, right? An arc, something like this, this is an arc. So in our story here, we are going to have a receptor here and the effector here and the brain here. We are going to learn how these stimulus here get to be transferred into an impulse by the receptor, and the impulse goes to the brain, and from the brain goes to the another neuron here. From the neuron, it brings back from the motor neuron to the effector, right? The reflex action is the action, right? The action that you do that is bring up by the reflex arc, right? The respond that you are going to respond when this. We did a fire, when you have to jump away from the fire. We are going to learn that. Then, so at the end of the today lesson, you also have to learn the structure, right? The structure of reflex arc, a simplified one where we are using all this diagram where we are having a receptor, an example of a sensory neuron, example where we show the dorsal spinal root. We talked about this yesterday, the dorsal part, right? The one that houses the neuron that enters the spinal cord, and the ventral root, the one that houses the neuron that is coming out of the spinal cord. We talked about the spinal cord, the interneuron. Today, you see, we have the motor neuron, we have the sensory neuron, we have the motor neuron, we also have the interneuron, right? We have the motor neuron here, and then we have the effector. So we're going to put this on a picture, and you're going to see all this function. You might think like this is hard thing. This you can understand after explaining everything, right? You should be able to understand this, so you should be able to place down this simplified structure of a reflex arc, right? And then from there, you should learn the function of a simple reflex arc action and using an example, right? From there, we can take this information and apply it on our daily basis activities, right? Me touching a hot surface, pulling out my arm, I should be using this reflex arc, right? And we also have to learn the significance of reflex arc. Why is this reflex arc important to us, right? What is it that is bringing this reflex arc, right? You having a reflex action, how is that helping you, right? And then we also have the significance of synapses, right? Yesterday, if you still remember, I said that these sensory, or these wires of us, they are not connected like this, right? We have the sensory neuron, the first neuron, we have the interneuron, the one that is in between, and we also have the last motor neuron. So we have the gap here. I told about this gap, and we said this gap is called the synapsis, or a synapse gap, right? So in this gap, we are also going to learn why is this gap important, right? Why those neurons, or why these cables, they don't connect, right? So that will be the structure and a lesson of today, right? So thank you for those who are subscribing, those who are following me, and those who are viewing, guys. Those 5 viewers, I said that the long walk to distinction, we still move on Shosholoza. As long as we have passengers in this train, the train will move from its origin to the destination. So let's move on, guys. Today, let's learn the nerve system, which will be the neurons and the reflex arc. So we can go to our this book here. We had our yesterday. Okay, yesterday, let's start with our yesterday. We have 2 minutes before we can come to our 10 minutes mark. Yesterday we did response to the environment, right? We learned the response, we learned the stimuli, we learned the cerebrum, we learned the corpus callosum, hypothalamus, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, right? So we also have the activity here, that this activity was from our what we call our green book, right? Green book, mind the gap, right? But this part controls heartbeat. We control the heartbeat at the medulla oblongata, and then it controls the center. It contains the center that controls the balance. We know when we talk about the balance, we are referring to the cerebellum here. And then number 3, it has the center that interprets what you see. You know, here we're talking about the sights, the hearing, cerebrum, right? Cerebrum. And then number 4, it coordinates voluntary muscles. Voluntary, it coordinates. Here the keywords, it coordinates. Cerebrum, it controls voluntary muscles. Cerebellum, it coordinates voluntary muscles, right? And then number 5, it controls body temperature, hypothalamus. So we can move on to our textbook. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for joining. This is what we did yesterday. We even planned how are we going to tackle these topics in a short period of time, with 3 weeks. This one in a week. Then we did this. You can agree with me. We did this terminology, and then we even talked about the neuron there. there's the neuron there, and then this neuron, it has the dendrites, we have the nerve. When these two neurons are together, here they say the bundles of neurons, right? We have the gap there, and then this gap, the things or the chemical that is being passed from one neuron to another neuron, it's called neurotransmitter, right? These are the carrier impulses. You're going to learn about this, how these are being passed from one neuron to another neuron, from one neuron to another neuron, up until we can say our message was interpreted, right? We move on. We did the nervous system, central nervous system, the brain, and the spinal cord. I did this example. Today we'll be learning the process. We'll be learning these neurons here, right? These neurons, these are the nerves, right? Made out of two neurons, right? We did the Thursday we're going to learn about this peripheral, and then yesterday and today we learn about the brain and the spinal cord, right? Which will be the central. You say this one is the central nervous system, because these cables here, or these nerves of ours, they are taking the impulse to the central nervous system, which can be the spinal cord or the brain, right? We learn about this, we move on. We did this yesterday, we did our brain, a cerebrum, cerebellum, know the difference, cerebellum, the back of your head. We even did the function of those, right? You agree with me? We did the spinal cord. Today we also have to come here. Today we are learning these cables that yesterday I said there's a cable that is bringing on the impulse, and there's a cable that is bringing out the impulse, and there's a cable that is joining these two cables, right? This one is called the interneuron, and this one is called the sensory neuron, and this one is called the motor neuron. You're going to learn about this, and the one that houses the motor neuron is a dorsal root, and the one that houses the sensory neuron, the one that houses the motor neuron is a ventral root, and the one that houses the sensory neuron is a dorsal root, right? So you're going to learn this today. We skipped white matter and green matter because we said in a brain the situation is different. In a spinal cord, the gray matter inside, the white matter outside, but in a brain, the white matter inside, the gray matter outside. I will have time, I will explain this, why it is like this, right? So now we have a spinal nerve here. This nerve here, it consists of two neuron. We have a nerve and we have a neuron. This nerve here consists of a neuron bringing in the information from a receptor. We learned about the receptor yesterday, and then the other one, other neuron here is taking out the impulse to the effector, right? So we move on. We're going to learn that in a detailed thing, right? We did an activity. I give you an activity yesterday, number A, B, C, D, E, F. Let's do a correction here, for those my following my subscription students, right? Let's do this correction. Today it's 16/04 2024, right? So we're going to do correction number A, number 1. 2 minutes, 3 minutes will be done. Number 1, give the names of the parts labeled A up until C. Number A, it's a cerebrum, and then number B, that's going to be corpus callosum. It's a corpus callosum, right? And then number C there, this one will be cerebellum, right? Cerebellum. And then number F, if we are going to also include number F, E, D, E, F, D, spinal cord, E, medulla oblongata, F, hypothalamus, right? Don't mistaken with a pituitary gland there. And then number 2, give the letter of the name of the parts responsible for coordinating. I told you that the key word is coordinating. It's cerebellum, coordinating all voluntary movement, right? Number A, it controls all the voluntary movements. Number C, it coordinates. This one will be number C. And then number B, memorizing a cell number phone. This will be cell phone number phone. This will be a cerebrum, right? A cerebrum. Cerebrum, right? I'm just because with these two words, this one is made of cerebellum, this one is made of cerebrum. So number 3 there, we move to number 3. But explain 2 functions of part E and F. Here you can just go back to your textbook and see those answers, right? Those who have textbook, you can go back. Number E, where is number E? This one will be medulla oblongata, but the one function of medulla oblongata, we say this one controls the heartbeat, all those involuntary muscles, right? Involuntary movement, heartbeat, peristalsis, a small influx, reflux. You can go up there. Then number F will be our hypothalamus. It control our thirst, it control our hunger, all those substances, right? Number 4 will provide 2 ways in which number D is protected. Number D, spinal cord, protected by 3 layers, meninges protected by cerebrospinal fluid, and also protected by what? By vertebrate bones, right? And cartilages. And then number 5, which function of the body might be affected if the lower back of the part of the head receive a significant impact in a car accident, right? Here we say that we are coming and hit you at the back. We can affect number C or number E, right? Medulla oblongata or number cerebellum. So you know the function of what is number C controlling. So if we hit you and this part here get a what damage, it means that when you are going to lose your balance, right? Maybe you can be paralyzed, hence we hit you kastunyamo and then you get paralyzed because you cannot coordinate the skeletal movement. Or we can damage number E there, which is medulla oblongata, and then it means that you are going, the function that are going to be affected will be your breathing, your peristalsis, and your what we call breathing. Yeah, you can stop breathing there. And then another one, a heartbeat, right? Heartbeat it can also be affected. Those was the correction, or that was the mini correction with our revision, right? So now we are going to learn the neurons. Welcome to my class. My name is Mr. Pepu. We are going to learn the neurons, right? 15 minutes elapsed. Today we are going to learn about neurons. Yesterday I was saying, hey, we have the receptor, we'll have the cable taking the impulse to the brain, and we also have the impulse cable taking the impulse to the effector. Now we are going to learn these cables. How are these structured? What is the difference? How are they differentiated, this neuron? And we also have another one there in the brain, the spinal cord and the brain. Both of them, their central nervous system, right? We have you will see this, right? I talked about it when I was revising here, this structure here. We have another neuron here. We also have another neuron. This is another neuron. This is another. So we have 3 types of these neurons, right? You learn them. You learn them today. These 3 types of these neurons, right? These wires. So here it says neurons. Neurons are structural units of a nervous system. So these neurons are the structural units. This nervous system, it is comprised, or it's made out of neurons. So if we don't have neurons, we were not going to have a nervous system, right? Neurons, these are the cables. Same thing, right? 2 neurons, they made out a nerve. Don't confuse these two, right? A nerve is made out of neurons, right? But the neurons are specialized cells. You have types of specialized cells. We have Boma egg cells, the one that you are doing term 1, term 1 egg cells, ovum, those are specialized cells, right? And then these are also specialized cells. You see, if you still remember yesterday, we said our brain is made up of a nervous tissue that cannot repair itself, right? Because these are the specialized cells. When they die, right? They don't mitosis, what. So which connect the brain. These neurons, they are connecting the brain and the spinal cord to all other parts of the body. We did the brain, we did the spinal cord, and say we have the nerves that are coming out, other one going to your foot, the other one going to your foot, the other one going to your stomach, the other one going to your arm, another one going. These are the nerves made out of a neuron. So these neurons, they are connecting the spinal cord and the brain to the all parts of your body. Right? For when not to feel the pain at your pinky toe there, it's because there's a connector, or there's some message. The pain is felt, and then the message is going to be sent to your spinal cord, right? You're going to learn about this today. So with that being said, Barry, you have to learn the illustration as illustrated in figure 5 below. You're going to learn the figure 5 below. The neurons have the following structure, right? They have the following structure. These neurons, they have a following structure. We have 3 types of neurons. The first one will be the sensory neuron. The second one will be the inter one. Like we have this one taking the message to the brain, and we also have the one that is going to take the message from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. The one that is inside, we call it an interneurons, right? And then the one that is going to bring the message to the effector, we call it a motor neuron. You are going to see the structure. They are different in structures, right? The structure of a sensory neuron is different from the interneuron, and it's also different, or is distinguished from the motor neuron, right? So all of these neurons, the sensory neuron, the interneuron, the motor neuron, they have the dendrites, right? They have the dendrites, they have the cell body, and they have the axon. We did this in our examination guideline, that you have to learn, you have to see the structure, you have to be able to identify the nucleus, the cell body, the cytoplasm. This one make up the cell body, and and the myelin sheath and the axon and the dendrites, right? In our cell book, in our textbook, that's what they're saying. They say these neurons here, they have the dendrites, means that we have the effector, and then from the effector we'll have the motor neuron. This is the dendrites. The dendrites, it is transmitting. We did the word yesterday. To transmit is to send, right? This is transmitting the impulses towards the cell body. You are going to learn these sensory neurons of ours, they have the cell body. These interneurons of ours, they have the cell body. These motor neurons of ours, they have the cell bodies, but the structure before the cell body, it is the dendrites. These things that they are welcoming the impulses, right? And then we also have the cell body that is controlling the metabolism of the body. So here, whatever is passing the cell body, you can see the dendrites is sending the impulse to the cell body. So inside the cell body, we are going to create another impulse, or we are going to interpret those impulses, so that at the end, you are going to learn this. At the end of this sensory neuron, we are going to remove the neurotransmitter we talked about yesterday. Those neurotransmitters, they are going to be picked up by an interneuron, right? An interneuron is going to pick this up using the dendrites, and then with dendrites, the impulse is still going to move and come to the cell body. After the cell body, our cell body is going to interpret the message and remove the neurotransmitter at the end, and these neurotransmitters, they are going to be picked up by a motor neuron, and this motor neuron is going to pick this by the dendrites, and then it's also going to send these messages to the cell body. And after the cell body, the motor neuron, they're going to remove also the neurotransmitters, and the effector is going to be affected, right? The effector, we say this is an organ. This organ can be, and this can be an organ, this can be a gland, or this can be a tissue. An organ is made up of a tissue, right? In your arm, this will be your arm, your bicep, and and then you'll be your finger. You have muscles here. These muscles here, they can act as an effector, right? Where do we find the receptor? We find them in your fingertips. And then these neurons of ours, they have the axon. What is an axon? This is a transmission, or this axon is transmitting the impulses away from the cell body. Now you know that we have a cell body, and the dendrites, they are bringing the impulse to the cell body, and this cell body is going to interpret whatever it's going to interpret and send it via the axon to the next part here. And then the last part here is going to remove those neurotransmitters here. They are going to remove those neurotransmitters in their terminal axon. This axon, it has a terminal just called a axon terminal, right? The cable here comes, and you'll see this, right? So they also said that this cable of ours that we are talking about, they also have myelin sheath. What is this myelin sheath? We are saying that we have our receptors here, and then our sensory neuron taking it to the body, to the cell body. From the cell body, we send this to the brain here. Inside the brain, we have another neuron which will send this message to the cell body, and then we also have another one, right? So what is the myelin sheath? Myelin sheath, these are the insulating. They are insulating the axon. You understand? We have an axon. We say this is the line this is the line here that is transmitting this, right? So this line is protected by something called myelin sheath, something like this. They are insulated. To insulate is to cover, right? We are covering this axon of ours. These things, or this myelin sheath that we are talking about, they are going to speed up the transmission of impulse, right? They are also protected, or this is the myelin sheath, they are also enclosed by a membrane called neurolemma, right? These are the things that we are talking about. So this layer here is going to be neurolemma, right, which helps to repair the damaged neuron. We can in other book, they also have the nucleus of their own, right? So in this book, you can see they are not saying about it. It means that we are also going to take that this myelin sheath of ours, they are protected by a layer called neurolemma, and this neurolemma, it helps in repairing our damaged neurons, right? These cables of ours. So let's go and study the structure of neurons. We have 3 neurons. We have sensory neurons, we have interneurons, we have motor neurons, right? You know that our sensory neurons will have the receiver, or the receptor taking that side, right? And our motor neuron, it will be connected to the effector, bringing the impulse this side. So let's go and look to those structures, right? This is the structure of motor neuron. This will be our last neuron in this arc, right? In this arc of ours. So let's come this side. This arc will be the sensory neuron, will be the interneuron, and we have the motor neuron. This one is the type of a motor neuron, right? The motor neuron is going to connect to our effector. So here we are going to have our effector, right, being an organ, being a muscle, so that muscles will react to the stimuli, right? So as you can see, this is the direction of the impulse here. The direction of impulse, the impulse is coming from the nucleus here. This is a nucleus inside a cell body, right? This is cell. This is a cell body here. The whole thing here. This is a cell body. The cell body, it has the nucleus, and this nucleus is carrying out the metabolic, right? And we also have the dendrites. These dendrites, they are receiving the neurotransmitters. We talked about neurotransmitters yesterday. These dendrites, they are receiving the neurotransmitters. After receiving the neurotransmitter, that impulse is going to enter our nerve or our neuron. When it enters our neuron, it's going to come to our cell bodies. Hence we say these neurons, they send the impulse to the cell body. When it comes to our cell body is going to remove, or it's going to send an impulse down its axon. This will be an axon, and we'll find that this axon is protected by a myelin sheath. This myelin sheath that I was talking about, having a layer called neurolemma, right? Having a layer called neurolemma. And I also said that in other books you'll find that we have the nucleus of this myelin sheath called a nucleus of Schema, right? It's not necessary in this book. You can see even in our example, we can go to our study guide and see if those nucleus here, they are being you understand, they are being labeled, or they are being given that attention. But you can see from our examination guideline, they didn't give those nucleus here and attention. If you come across them, it's fine, they are there. This is a complex things, guys. This is a complex things. We are just giving you a brief explanation. We also have a cell membrane, a cell membrane. Yeah, we could say this one is a cell membrane, and we also have the nucleus. We also have the cytoplasm. You know, the cytoplasm is a space here. We also have the cytoplasm, right? You know, or you'll understand that when we label our graph, we take everything to our right. I'm just giving this cytoplasm because I can see that I'm causing traffic of words this side, right? So let's move on. The impulse is picked up by the as it was transmitted as a neurotransmitter, right? Being transmitted from what? From a interneuron. We talked about this interneuron, right? This will be the interneuron. This will be the interneuron sending or removing the neurotransmitter, right? Is it 2T? Not sure. Neurotransmitters, right? Those interneuron, it will be the one that is removing it, that is taking out the neurotransmitters, right? These neurotransmitters, they are going to be picked up by our motor neuron. This will be our motor neuron, right? This motor neuron, the structure is like this. The dendrites, they are picking up the neurotransmitter and send the impulse to the body. The body there, it has the nucleus and everything, and the message is going to be sent down our axon. This myelin sheath, increasing the speed or speeding up the movement of this impulse, this electrical signal, right? Going down to our effector. When we reach here, we are going to say these are the terminal ends of an axon, or we are going to say the terminal axon terminal, right? We can just say axon terminal, right? Terminal, or the terminal ends of an axon. The terminal ends of axon, they also have another parts there. We call them the synaptic knob, right? I'm not sure if you can see this one is a complicated thing. So this information is also being kept to basic information, right? We also have a synaptic knob there, that this knob, they are going to remove this neurotransmitter, so that the neurotransmitter will be sent to the effector. Then this effector, this will be the muscles, and it's like an electric shock, shocking this muscle, so that these muscles will pull back, right? So this is an electric signal. The impulse, we say this is an electric signal, right? This is a structure of a motor neuron. So it's also different from a sensory neuron, and it's also different from the interneuron. Let's go same definition. So same dendrites, same terminal axon, same axon protected by myelin sheath. This myelin sheath protected by a neurolemma, right? We are going on. We move on, but there are three types of neurons: sensory neuron, interneuron. Some books, they will say this one is a connector neuron, since it is connecting, right? Since this neuron, interneuron, it's an it is in between, or connector, it is connecting the sensory neuron and the motor neuron, right? And then the last one is a motor neuron there, and this illustrate in figure 6 up until figure 6a up until figure 6c, right? So we are going on with our neurons. If they ask you draw a simple structure of a motor neuron, you are going to draw something like this. Yes, you'll have to show the dendrites, something like you're going to show the dendrites. After the dendrites, you are going to cell the cell body. After the cell body, you are going to show the what do we call the axon being protected by myelin. You know, in grade 12, in life science, we are not entertaining your drawing skills, right? So if when you show that, you understand whatever is happening, it's fine. Then from there, you'll have that terminal axons, and this one you'll say this one are the dendrites, and this one will be the cytoplasm, this one will be the nucleus, and this one, all this will be the cell body, this one will be myelin sheath, this one will be axon, and then this one will be the terminal, right? A simplified structure. So from there we go to our sensory neuron. There's a difference between motor neuron and the sensory neuron. You can see now there's a difference between the motor neuron and the sensory neuron. This is a sensory neuron. Okay, let's go back. A motor neuron, we talked about that, right? A motor neuron, it transmits the impulse, right, from the interneuron. The motor neuron, it transmits the neurons from the interneurons to the effector. Or, since this interneuron, we found it inside the central nervous system. We found these neurons inside the central nervous system, which will be the brain or the spinal cord. We say that the motor neuron is transmitting the impulse from the central nervous system to the effector. Right? The sensory neuron is going to transmit the impulse from the receptor to the central nervous system, which will be the brain or spinal cord, right? In this system or in this simple diagram of ours. So here's the motor neuron. Here's the sensory neuron. For to say this is a sensory neuron, and I said the sensory neuron, it transmits the impulses from the receptor and to the central nervous system, CNS, right? Central nervous system. You can see here they said it transmits the impulse from the sensory to the central nervous system. It does not, they are not saying that it transmits this impulse to the interneuron. Right? They're saying that when the impulses get inside the central neurons, they are going to be picked up by an interneuron. It's not like the sensory neuron is going to take the impulses and send them straight to the motor neuron. They send this impulse to the central nervous system. Inside the central nervous system, we are going to see an interneuron which is going to pick up those neurotransmitters and send them back to the motor neuron, which is happening inside the brain, which is happening inside the central nervous system, right? The receiving of the impulse and the sending of the impulse, it's happening inside the central nervous system, right? And then we see another neuron taking the message back to the effector. So with our sensory neuron, this is our sensory neuron, we have our receptor, right? In this way, it's upside down, right? Will agree with me, because in our the thing here, effector is at the down and the brain is up there, right? But as you can see, this one will be upside down, right? Let's agree like that. But if we want to say the direction, we'll start with a receptor. Right, this will be our receptor. This will be our organ that is recepting, or this will be our whatever, an organ or a structure. This will be a structure that is receiving the stimuli. So we'll have the stimuli here, we'll have the fire here. This receptor of ours is receiving the stimuli, and when it receives this stimuli, it transmits it, or it converts it into an impulse. So what is happening here? We'll have our receptors here, and then with these receptors, by the thing, when we say it's converting our impulse it's converting our stimuli to the impulse, it's removing those neurotransmitters. It means that this stimulus is going to activate this receptor to remove those neurotransmitters, and when it removes those neurotransmitters, the dendrites of this sensory cell, the dendrites of a sensory cell, they are going to pick up those neurotransmitters, and after picking those neurotransmitters, they are going to send it down the axon there. After sending down the axon, they will see the myelin sheath increasing the speed of this electrical impulse being picked up from the receptor there. The direction of impulse, you can see it's picking up this, the dendrites are picking this up to the cell body. You can see now the cell body here is different from a motor neuron, right? You can see now the simplified structure of a sensory neuron. We will have the dendrites this side, and then we'll have a outside body, a cell body. You'll see this cell body here, and then we go up, and then we go to our axon terminal, right? Our dendrites will be taking the impulse here to the cell body, different from our motor neuron. Our motor neuron is like this, the dendrites straight to the cell body. But with our motor neuron, since you can see that this sensory can be allocated at your arm, And then this nerve system, they have to go straight to our to your what we call to your spinal cord, right? If you still remember our spinal cord, let's go up, let's go up, let's go up. If you still remember your spinal cord, I told you that there is a nerve that is bringing in the impulse, right? This nerve, it has a body here. You can see this part here is called the dorsal root. It's called the dorsal root because it houses this body of a sensory neuron, right? And here we'll have the dendrites that they will be picking up the neurotransmitters from the receptors, sending it to the spinal cord here. So it will pass a dorsal root. This part here we call the dorsal root, housing these cell bodies, right? Let's go and see those cell bodies there. That the cell body that I'm talking about, this will be our cell bodies, right? Different from our motor neuron, also different to our interneuron. We are also going to do an interneuron different from this sensory neuron, right? So the message is picked up there from our dendrites. It's moving down from our axon, and when it comes to our myelin sheath, when it comes to this, these are going to increase the speed of impulse, right? This to the what we call to our body cell, right? This will be a cell body. Sorry, this will be our cell body. You see that they didn't what we call, they didn't label this because the same thing what is happening with our top right there. So this cell body, you can see this one cell body is naked, does not include the dendrites. If they can give you a differentiate between a sensory neuron and a motor neuron. A cell body of a sensory neuron, it is not covered by the dendrites, but the one of a motor neuron, it is covered by the dendrites, right? So when it comes here, the dendrites will take, even the neuron will take the impulse to the cell body. When it reaches the cell body, is going to be interpreted. After interpreted, the impulse will still continue, go down. This will be a long thing, right? Going down, and then the axon is also myelinated, right? It means that this electricity is going to go down and go down. It's going to go to our terminal axon, right? This will be our terminal axon, right? And this terminal axon, since I said that we have a synaptic knob here, this synaptic knob, they are going to remove another kind of what we call neurotransmitters, right? We are going to remove another kind of neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters, they are going to be picked by a dendrites of an interneuron inside central nervous system. Right after central nervous system, this neuron, let's go to our interneuron and see what is happening. After that, we are going to link all these three together, right? Terminal axon from the body to the other neuron, right? And then here's the example of our interneuron. You can see there's a difference with our motor neuron, a motor neuron, and our sensory neuron, and our interneuron, connector neuron, right? They can say this is a connector neuron, right? And this interneuron, it connects a sensory neuron to a motor neuron, right, in a central nervous system. So this one, we found them inside a central nervous system. We found them inside the brain, and we also find them inside the spinal cord. These interneurons, they are the one that are picking the neurotransmitters from the sensory neuron, sending them to the motor neuron, right? And then the structure is like this. The structure is like this. They have the dendrites there at the top, and then you can see that this part before the dendrites to the cell body is not myelinated, right? The dendrites here, they are going to pick up those neurotransmitters that they were sent by a sensory neuron, right? This will be the sensory neuron here, bringing our terminal axons. These terminal axons, they are going to produce a neurotransmitter, and our interneuron is going to pick up those neurotransmitters. And after picking those neurotransmitters, the message is going to be sent to our cell body. This will be our cell body with our nucleus, right? A cell body is going to do whatever the cell body is going to do, and it's going to send this message now down you can see the direction of impulse. Now the impulse is being sent down, and then now you can see this part here is myelinated, right? So that this impulse here will have this more speed to our terminal axon. In our terminal axon, we are going to force this knob here, synaptic knob, to remove those neurotransmitters, and those neurotransmitters, they are going to be picked up by our motor neuron. This will be a motor neuron having our dendrites and our cell body, and then from there we'll have these things sent to our terminal axon and to our effector. So at the end of the day, when you said your message was interpreted, when you say your message was interpreted, it is when these neurotransmitters, they are being released. You will understand that a sensory neuron, will remove a different neurotransmitter. That this neurotransmitter, they are going to be sent to an interneuron, and then interneuron is going to remove, or is going to produce another different types of neurotransmitters, and these neurotransmitters, they are going to be picked up by a motor neuron. A motor neuron is going to release another type of neurotransmitter. That these neurotransmitters, they are going to be connected or collected by our effector. These neurons here, where these neurons started, they were started by an effector. Effector is going to remove another part of neurons. That these neurons, they are going to be picked up by a sensory neuron. Sensory neuron is going to produce another neurotransmitter. This neurotransmitter, they are going to be picked up by our interneuron. Our interneuron is going to remove another type of neuron transmitter. This neurotransmitter, they are going to be picked on by our motor neuron. Our motor neuron is going to produce another type of neurotransmitter. This neurotransmitter, they are going to be picked up by our effector. At the end of the day, these muscles, by the time these muscles pull back your arm, this is what is happening. When you say your message was interpreted, this is what is happening. There is no a computer somewhere, there's no someone clicking the message, okay, the person is saying is feeling hot, it means that the person is feeling hot. No, this is what is happening. The neurotransmitters, they are the one that determines the message that is going to be sent from one neurons to another. Hence, we can say, for an example here, I'm not sure if I can use this example here. Let me use this example when we are done with reflex arc, right? How is this message is being sent, right? From our here, we are going to learn how this message is being sent, right? With our reflex arc. So you can see the motor neuron. These are the three different types of neuron. We have the sensory neuron here picking from the receptor cell. From the receptor cell, we send those neurotransmitters down to the interneuron, and then inside the interneurons, we are going to send those neurotransmitter to our motor neuron. Inside the motor neurons, we are going to send those neurons to our effector there, which will be our muscles or whatever, right? But the motor neurons transmit impulse from the central nervous system to the effectors, right? Muscles or the glands in the body. So here's the thing, you will see that they will say in this explanation, they say, or in this, how do we explain this? We say a motor neuron, from a motor neuron, sensory neuron to a central nervous system. This can be a brain, or this can be a spinal cord. Inside a central nervous system, we have a neuron that is taking its place, and then from there the impulse will move from a central nervous system to the effector using a motor neuron. Right? You understand that? We have the receptor. Receptor is going to send the impulse to the central nervous system. Can send it to the brain, or it can send it to the spinal cord, right? Whatever is happening inside, the message is being interpreted by the interneuron, right? And then from there, the message from interneuron is going to be sent to the motor neuron, and this motor neuron will see this motor neuron taking the impulse away from central nervous system to the effector, right? This one will be the effector, this one will be the receptor. Right, the message here, this one will be the motor neuron, this one will be the sensory neuron, and the one that is interpreting the message is inside here called the interneuron. Right, so I want to explain this. Why are they not saying the motor neuron transmit the impulse from interneuron to the effector? Right, because this motor neuron, the motor neuron here, it's collecting this one inside the central nervous system. It's collecting these neurotransmitters inside central nervous system. So from there, the message will come out of a central nervous system via motor neurons to the effector. Right, I was talking about the synapses, and I was talking about the neurotransmitters. With this neurotransmitter, you will agree with me that these two cells, they don't meet, right? These two cells, or these three cells, sensory neuron, interneuron, and the motor neuron, they don't meet. They send, or they omit, or they release neurotransmitters, and another neuron is picking up those neurotransmitters, right? And this gap here, we call it a synaptic gap. Let's go and study about it. This gap is called a synapse. But a synapse, figure number 7, right? This is a functional connection between the axon of one neuron and the dendrites of the other neuron, right? This is a functional connection. These are connected by a gap called a synapsis, right? Different with other gaps, because what is happening in this gap is not happening somewhere else. In this gap, we are removing neurotransmitters, and another neuron is picking up these neurotransmitters. So this is the connection between the axon of one neuron and the dendrites of the other neuron, right? The connection is established by the neurotransmitters, right? This neurotransmitter that I'm talking about, this connection is established by that. And these neurotransmitters, there are chemicals that move across the gap between between the axon and the dendrite to transmit the impulse, right? Those neurotransmitters, these are the chemicals that they move between the axon and the dendrites. It means that when the time or the moment the dendrites pick up these chemical neurotransmitters, it's going to produce an impulse that now it's going to send it to another axon, to the cell body, right? Axon, dendrites to the cell body, from cell body to the axon to the other cell body. You'll see this. Let's go on. But the significance of synapses, why they don't just connect these things? Why are they not just connecting, having one thing like this? Here's the significance. Why these gaps here? The sensory nervous system connecting with interneuron, connecting with the motor neuron. They are playing an important role to ensure that the impulse moves in one direction only. Right, they make sure that the impulse moves in one direction. It means that if the sensory neuron is going to produce the different the type of a neurotransmitter that is different from this neurotransmitter here, it means that this interneuron is going to pick up only these neurons here, right? So I'm not sure if you understand that, but if you understand the path that these neurotransmitters here, they're different with these neurotransmitters here, it means our interneuron is going to pick up only the neurons that only the neurotransmitter that are produced by a sensory neuron. Same with our motor neuron, is going to pick up the neurotransmitters that are produced by our interneurons. Doing that, we are ensuring that our impulses move in one direction. Our impulses, that does not go back, right? Because these motor neurons, it have the picking up line and the releasing line. Even our motor neuron, it have the picking up line and the releasing up line. Okay, let's move on. This, it prevents the continuous stimulation of neurons, right? So if the neurotransmitters, they are being produced and their dendrites pick up one neurotransmitters and send the message, it now prevents those other dendrites to pick up those neurotransmitters. Hence, here we can use an example of you comprehending a pain, right? Holding something that is hot and tell your body that I'm going to hold this thing wire. It means that the neurotransmitters, they are being produced to kick up the other dendrites or to pick up the other neurons there, to interpret that whatever you're holding is hot, but because your message is being sent by neurotransmitters, we can prevent the continuous stimulation. We can prevent the message here being sent, right? Something like that. So we move on. It can also ensure that the impulse is transmitted from a sensory neuron to a motor neuron. That's what I was talking about, right? It makes sure that the impulses is transmitted from a sensory neuron, to a motor neuron, from a motor neuron, from an interneuron to a motor neuron. So what is happening? What is that gap? This is the gap that we're talking about. This is the gap, and this is the direction of the impulses. And this is a synapsis, right? A synapsis, this is the gap. This will be the axon of, maybe let's take this will be our sensory neuron, right? This our sensory neuron is bringing the impulse. The impulse is going to come in. When the impulse come in, it's going to activate this cycle of hours. When it activates this cycle of hours, it's going to cause this cycle of hours to burst and produce something called a neurotransmitter, right? These neurotransmitters, they are going to be picked up in our receptors on our dendrites. We have these receptors. It just means that something that is recepting something. We are going to learn this word, or we are going to use this word all over life science. Something that is recepting, we call it a receptor. So don't be confused, this receptor and the receptor that we found recepting the first impulses there in our sensory neuron, right? These are these receptors that are recepting the neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters, here we can when we do drugs, or when we do a marijuana, how marijuana gets to affect you, we are going to learn about this, right? So these neurotransmitters, they're being produced and they are picked up by the dendrites of the other neuron. This can be an interneuron, right, taking this message to another axon like this, to the motor neuron, right? So this will be our receptors. So this is how the message is being sent. The neurotransmitter, this, if we are saying like maybe the message that I'm bringing here is the different from whatever this one, it means that I'm going to produce a different neurotransmitters, right? And these different neurotransmitters, they're going to be recepted here, and then the message is going to be taken as the message taken to the cell body, right? To a cell body or the nucleus, right? When it arrives to the nucleus, it's going to be interpreted and it's going to be sent now coming again to the other part of an axon, doing the same thing. This is how we send the message from one neuron to the other. right? I hope you understand this. This is how we say, I've been saying this up. Hey, they remove the neurotransmitter. This is what is happening, right? One axon of one a sensory neuron, or the interneuron, or the motor neuron. All of them, since they have the axon, they have the terminal axon, they are going to remove these neurotransmitters, right? This is how the synapses, this is the gap, and this is what's happening inside this gap, right? We can move on now. 48 minutes, and then we also have our activity here. This will be our homework. We are going to do this tomorrow when we do this one. They say this is spam, and homework, this one will be the 16/04/2024, right? We are going to do this tomorrow, including this with our activity, right? Including this with our Wednesday, what we call Wednesday question papers and answer. So you can label number A. What is A? You can label number B. You can label number C. You can label number D. You can label number E, and then you can also label the whole structure. Which neuron is this? Is this a sensory neuron? Is this an interneuron? Is this a motor neuron? Right? Using the what we learn. Right? So we can move on. This will be the activity. Maybe they will ask you those questions in this activity. Provide the neuron here, which type of neuron is being represented here, and then the function of number D, you know this one are myelin sheath, and then number C there, this one is the axon, and then as you can see that they didn't ask you the membrane covering the myelin sheath, they didn't ask you the nucleus that are found here inside this myelin sheath, right? And then we have the terminal axons here carrying on, right? So we can move on to our reflex arc now. You'll agree with me, right? The reflex arc and reflex action. What is happening? This might sound like a many big words, but it's just a way, right? But a reflex arc, a reflex action and a reflex arc, right? A reflex action, this is a quick autonomic response to a stimulus, right? And I told you that this activity or this system is very fast, mind you, right? Controlled by a brain and a spinal cord. This system is very fast, right? So what are we going to do here? We are going to say that we have the neurons that are picking up, bringing this to the spinal cord, and also waving another cord or another neuron, taking back or taking away these impulses to the effector, right? A reflex action is a quick response. We are responding to the stimulus, right? And this reflex action is brought upon by a reflex arc. But a reflex arc is the pathway along which an impulse is transmitted to bring about a response to the stimulus during a reflex action. A reflex arc is a pathway. When you say from a receptor, we are going to take an impulse to the sensory neuron. From sensory neuron, we are going to take it to the interneuron inside the central nervous system, which can be the brain or the spinal cord. From there, we are going to move these impulses to the motor neuron. From the motor neuron to the effector. You are referring to the reflex arc, the pathway, right? The action that you are going to react, they respond. If this action here, if this message that is being sent from this part to this part to this part to this part, it's studying or it is interpreting a fire, it means that when you are going to pull back, right? That pulling back, we call it a reflex action. That is an action that you take after a reflex arc has completed its way. A reflex arc from receptor, sensory neuron, interneuron, motor neuron, effector. It's a reflex arc, right? It's the pathway along with this impulse is going, right? Being transmitted to bring about, so that you can be able to respond to what? To respond to a stimulus. During what? During a reflex action, right? A reflex, maybe when you are screaming now, and then now we can explain, or during this reflex action, this person is screaming, right? The screaming is a reflex action. It's an action that is brought upon by something happening. It means that we have a stimulus, and we have the receptor, a receptor picking up the danger, and then the message is sent to the central nervous system, and then the message now is sent to your voice or to your voice cord for you to scream, right? So let's move on and understand this in a better way. But what are the significance of a reflex action, right? What are this one? Okay, another thing, I didn't read the entire thing here. They said examples. These are the knee jerk. You'll talk about this: sneezing, removing a body away from the danger or away from the pain, right? The fire here, this action, removing your hand away from the fire, removing your or running away from the danger, sneezing, coughing, knee jerk is the process, or is the another process that they use to explain this reflex action, where you hit your knee and then your leg jump, right? Your reflex, that is another example of a reflex action, right? And then yes, another, these are the action that you are going to do, the bending, the paining, is same thing, right? We'll have the receptor going on and on. And then they ask us, what is the significance of this reflex action? Why do we need this? Why do we need an autonomic? Autonomic, it is stored. To understand, it is a stored response, stored where inside a interneuron. That interneuron there, it's having something that when we activate it this side, it's going to remove a neurotransmitter that side that are going to cause an autonomic response. You hold a fire, you are going to remove your hand quickly as possible from the fire. It's a reflex action. It's controlled here on our spinal cord. This reflex action is controlled here on our spinal cord. Right after there, yesterday, I told you that after responding to this reflection action, the message is still going to continue to the brain, and now you can interpret of what is happening. You are getting burning. You understand your arms, it's getting bent, right? You stepped on top of a needle, something like that, right? So the significance of this, but a reflex action allows for a quick response without thinking about it. It prevents damage to the body. Why this reflex action is so needed in our body? When we say the significance, we want a main reason why. Significance is just they will ask this, name the significance of what, name the significance of what. The beautiful things of this, you understand, how can we benefit from this? Why is this reflection action so important to our body? It's so important because it allows us to respond quickly. It gives us a advantage of responding quickly to the dangers, right, without thinking about it. When you touch a hot surface, you don't think, oh no, now I'm touching a hot surface, let me take my hand out of that hot surface. Immediately, instantly, you remove your arm from that hot surface, right? It's brought upon our reflex action without thinking about it, and to prevent damage, right? So let's go and do activity, or let's go and do a diagram of how these impulses is being sent, how this pathway, the pathway there, and the reflex action, right? We are here. But the diagram below, figure 8, can be used to explain how a reflex action takes place. The arrows in the diagram shows the reflex arc, right? The reflex arc is the pathway. The reflex arc is when we say the impulse is going to move here, pass here, pass here, pass here, and then the reflex action is the touching and the action, the touching and the touching and the removing of your hand, right? So let's go and learn that here. This will be our thing, right? Here they say figure 8, a reflex action, right? There's a difference between a reflex action and a reflex arc. You should be able to differentiate these two, right? A reflex arc, we say this is the pathway. We have our receptor there. From the receptor, number 2, we have the sensory neuron. Number 3, we have the interneuron. Number 4, we have the motor neuron. Yes, the motor neuron, right? And then number 5 will be this thing, but the last one will be our effector. Where is the effector? This is the effector muscle contract. This will be our last part, starting with the receptor to the effector here, right? This will be our effector. So thank you. Here's the thing. Here's what is happening with our reflex action. Reflex action is you taking your arm away from the fire. You see this action of this person here, he's performing a reflex action. He's taking away his arm from the danger, right? But impulses moved from the hand to the brain, from the brain to the hand, so that this action can take place, right? So we have our stimulus here. So let's explain this. Let's explain this now, right? Thank you. Our time is up, by the way. Okay, we have our stimulus. We said this is a plural stimulus, single stimuli, right? Stimuli. This will be our last part, right? The hot object. When you are going to touch, here. We are going to touch. Let's use another color. Let's use red. Here you are going to touch, right? you are going to touch that thing. When you touch that thing, your receptors, they are going to convert the stimuli. This is before you can remove your hand. This is happening before you can remove your hand, right? Your receptors, they are going to receive the stimuli. After receiving the stimuli, they are going to convert this stimuli into an impulse, right? After converting this stimuli into the impulse now is going to be sent down. Here's our sensory neuron, right? Sensory neuron bringing this, they say the direction of the impulse, our direction, the impulse is going like this, right? Sensory neuron, we are going to link them here. This is where we are going to link our, you can see this is the green sensory neuron, right? Don't be confused up there. Yes, let's move on. This is our green sensory neuron. This is a sensory neuron. The sensory neuron is going to bring that impulses myelinated in our knowledge to speed up this electrical signal. So this electrical signal is going to move via the sensory neuron, right? When it moves, it's going to enter our spinal cord here. Where does it enter? It enter via our dorsal root. We talked about this. It enter via our dorsal root. How do we spot the dorsal root? We spot the dorsal root because it's having a body here. This body here, we see it in our sensory neuron. Sensory neuron, something like this, having a body and then an axon here and the dendrites, right? That this body here will be pegged in this dorsal root, right? It enters via the dorsal root, right? When this enters via the dorsal root, means that our impulses now reaches our nucleus. After reaching our nucleus, now it passing to the interneuron. There it will enter our spinal cord, right? When it enter our spinal cord, this is what is happening inside the spinal cord. When it enters our spinal cord here, it's going to produce those neurotransmitters inside the spinal cord. Inside the gray matter, we have the gray matter and the white matter, right? Is going to produce those neurotransmitters. When it produces those neurotransmitters, we have another one here. We have another connector neuron or interneuron here. Our interneuron is going to pick up those neurotransmitters inside our spinal cord. And you see the body there, it's inside the between, and it's also going to produce here. It's also going to produce our neurotransmitter. That this neurotransmitter, they are going to be picked up by our motor neuron inside the spinal cord. The changing of neuron from sensory neuron to a motor neuron, it's happening inside the spinal cord. The moment the motor neuron leaves the spinal cord, now it's just taking out the message that was interpreted using the interneuron here, right? So that the message now, that impulse is going down via the ventral root. The ventral root, you can see the one here, it have the dorsal, it has the body, and this one doesn't have the body, to show that this one is a motor neuron. Since you know the motor neuron, our cell body, it's located here inside the spinal cord, right? So this will be our axon, our myelinated axon, taking this message back to the effector. Those, you can see the message myelinated, go, and then it goes and hit our effector there. These muscles here, we say that this will be our effector, right? And these muscles here, this effector here is going to react. These muscles here, they are going to react. How are they going to react? They say they are going to contract, or they are going to pull back. When they are pulling back, they are going to force this entire arm here to pull back from the fire. Hence, we see that we can see the action where the person is pulling back the bent hand here. And then how are you going to know the process, or how are you going to feel this pain? The message is also going to be sent to your brain. When it arrives to your brain now is going to tell your body, your cerebrum, that you are burning in your arm here, and they now initiate the process of you feeling that pain, right? That pain is brought upon this protein being natured, cells being dying, whatever, right? The pain that you will feel here. So you understand. Also, we can also have another another arc here. The pain here is being censored by the receptors. This pain is going to be sent down neurotransmitters, and this sensory neuron is going to take this message, send it to the spinal cord, send it to the brain, and your brain is going to send back our message to the cerebrum, and then now your cerebrum is going to tell you, oh my guy, no, you are feeling pain. So any pain that you are feeling somewhere is because of the receptors. The receptors, they are going to recept whatever pain that is there. So here, the first thing, the receptors, they are going to recept this stimulus here, right? So this stimulus here is going to force our reflex action. This is a reflex action. It's not you feeling pain, right? Differentiate the two. It's not you feeling pain. It's not you saying, Uri, whatever it's holding there, it's hot. Hence you can find people that they can hold a hot pen, but they don't feel pain. Right, you find people that they can hold a what we call a hot fire, a hot coal, but they don't feel pain, because the message of that hotness is being sent to the brain, but not they are trying to ignore the reflex arc, right? And the message inside their brain is going to be sent to the brain that whatever you are holding there is damaging your body, my friend. Whatever is holding here, it's killing the cells. That's the pain that you are going to feel. But because you know that you are going to ignore those messages, those people, they can hold those coal for a long time. Right? And also we are going to talk about the damages when these cells, when there is damages along these nerves here, right? So this is what is happening in a nutshell. So they also explain this in your textbook. If maybe my explanation was not that understandable, they also explain this with the arrows, right? They said the reflex action of a person touching a hot pen, right? A reflex action, guys, this is a response, right? This is a response. It's not you feeling pain. This is a response, right? Take that. You holding something and pulling back your hand as far as possible. That is a reflex action. It's not you feeling that pain there. Right? So this is a reflex action. This is how the action takes place, or this is the arc from the beginning to the end, right? We'll start with the stimulus. We'll say the stimulus is detected by the receptors, and this stimulus here, it's going to be converted into the nerve impulse, right? Number one, the stimulus is detected by the receptor, and this stimulus is going to be converted into the nerve impulse. Now, the journey begins. The nerve impulse is transmitted along the sensory neuron through the dorsal root. We talked about this, through the dorsal root to the spinal cord. When they want you to explain this, they will find that they want you to use these keywords. The first keyword is the stimulus. I will circle the keywords, right? A stimulus being detected by the receptors, right? Converted to the impulse, a nerve impulse. The nerve impulse is transmitted along the sensory neuron through the dorsal root to the spinal cord. Inside the spinal cord now, the impulse is transmitted from the sensory neuron to the interneuron in the spinal cord, or a central nervous system, or the brain, right? Anyhow, and then from there, these impulses is going to be transmitted from the interneuron to the motor neuron in the spinal cord using the neurotransmitters, right? We are transferring that new impulses from the interneuron to the motor neuron, where inside the spinal cord. Then from inside the spinal cord, the work that is happening inside the spinal cord is done. Now the impulse will exit the spinal cord through the ventral root and transmitted along the axon to the motor neuron of the motor neuron to the effector organs, right? Which can be the muscle. This causes the muscles to contract. In this scenario of ours, it's going to cause that muscles to contract, or it's going to cause that muscles to pull back, right? And then all in all, the action that is going to happen, the hand is going to pull away from the stimulus quickly. So this hand pulling away from the stimulus quickly, we said it is performing a reflex action brought upon by a reflex arc. I believe you heard me there, right? But this reflex action does not include the pain. I was talking about this. This reflex action does not include the pain. Impulses will reach the brain after the reflex arc is complete, and the pain will be felt. Hence, when we hit you, or once you touch the hot surface, you throw away that hot surface, or you throw away that hot pen as quickly as possible, and then after that you start now feeling pain. Some people, they'll say, hey, adrenaline rush, hey, what, right? So life science is very much fast, but here, when you throw away that pen, from there, that's where you're going to feel that pain. That pain now, it's a message that is reaching your brain. So if now you can hold a hot surface and you cannot feel the pain, we ask you, are you feeling the pain? You are saying no. Are you feeling the pain? You are saying no. It means that the message is not reaching your brain there. Your brain is not interpreting whatever you're holding as a pain. So now you can hold that coal for why. Right? I was trying to emphasize this, that the reflex action does not include the pain, right? The impulses will reach the brain after the reflex arc. After the reflex arc, after the impulse was sent to the to the central nervous system, from central nervous system to the effector. You removing the hands away from the fire, right? It's complete. When this reflex arc is complete, that's when the pain will be felt. So that is from me, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. Those who are commenting, comment. Those who are liking, like, guys. Those who are subscribing, subscribe, guys. Subscribe. Yo, 1 hour 8 minutes. So this will be another homework. Relief. This will be another homework. This homework, they don't need much of your time. You can just look at them and then work them out, and then you prepare for tomorrow's lesson, right? As you can see, this one will be reflex arc. We also have our spinal cord here, right? So here you can see we have a pin, and this pin is going to insert a pain here. Mind you, this action here is not the pain, right? You are going to be pissed here. The moment you are going to be pissed here, the receptors, they are going to recept this pain here, or they are going to recept this action that is happening here. Or, hi man, you are touching something that is going to cause pain to your body. What your body going to do? Your body is going to react to that stimulus, right? This will be the stimulus, right? So this stimulus, after that, our neurotransmitters, our sensory neurons is going to take those neurotransmitters and send them to the spinal cord here via the dorsal root here. I talked about this, the dorsal root, we see it by the cell body of a sensory neuron. From there, we are going to see an interneuron here receiving the neurotransmitters from the sensory neuron. This one happening inside the spinal cord, and then inside the spinal cord is also going to release also those neurotransmitters and the dendrite. You can see here. And those motor neuron, you can see the motor neuron, because we said the motor neuron, or the cell body of our motor neuron, it is surrounded by the dendrites. You can see here it is surrounded by the dendrites, right? This thing here is happening inside the spinal cord. So the neurons here, the neurotransmitter, they're going to be picked up by the motor neuron. Immediately after picking up, the motor neuron is going to interpret the message, and the motor neuron is going to send that impulse down via the ventral root here to your effector. And when that message reaches your effector is going to respond. Responding by what? By relaxing the muscles or by constructing the muscles. Here in this point, you are going to jump and do something like this. Jumping, say ish, 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 right? From there, you are going to feel a pain. What is happening after the paining? It means that, here's the thing. Let me waste your 5 minutes now. Where do we feel the pain? Here you'll see that this dendrites or this axon, they come and do like this, right? And they produce this. We also have another interneurons that they will carry the message to the brain, and we'll also have another interneuron that will take the message to the motor neuron, right? Hence another significance of this synapsis. It makes possible for other neurons to also pick up the message. It means that this sensory neuron here is bringing two messages. One, it's going to be picked by interneuron, that this neuron is going to be, this impulse is going to be sent to the what we call to the motor neuron, right? And another interneuron here is going to pick these neurons here. Since these neurons are pickable by interneuron, it's going to pick these interneurons here and send them to the brain. When we arrive to the brain, we are going to interpret this as a pain. Now we are going to feel the pain. Now your body is going to tell you, hey my guy, you are hurt. You are feeling the pain, right? While the reflex arc, it's already happened way after, right? Understand that. I hope you understand that. Another books, they will say the sensory neuron is an afferent neuron. Is it A here? Afferent, I'm not sure. Afferent neuron. I'm just giving you this information, right? Afferent neuron, and this one here, it will be efferent. You did this efferent. You did this in grade 11 when we do the nephrons of a kidney. That the line that is bringing information to the central nervous system, or in that scenario, it was the line that is bringing the urine to the nephron. We said this is an afferent right? Here in this state, we are also doing that afferent neuron, a neuron that is bringing message to the central nervous system. Efferent neuron, this is the neuron that is taking an information away from the central nervous system to the effector, right? This one here is the central nervous system collective word. It can be a brain or it can be a spinal cord, right? So we are done with that. Now we can go and do our question papers tomorrow. Thank you for being here. This will be the questions that they will be asking you after scanning or after decoding this question here, right? You will find the question like this, you decode it like this, and then you go to the question. From there, they can ask you, label number D, label number D, the neuron number D, neuron number C, or the part that is C, you can see that one is an axon, right? Or if they say a neuron number C, that one will be a sensory neuron. And then number B there, that one will be the dorsal root. And then number F there, that will be a ventral root. And then number E there, that will be the effector. And then number A there, that will be if they say what is the neuron is this, you can see here what's the neuron, what type of neuron is this. You come here and see the neuron is bringing in information and is being picked up by an interneuron here. This is an interneuron is picking the body, or the cell body of an interneuron is situated as the body of a motor neuron. So you can say this one is a sensory neuron, this one is an interneuron, this one is a motor neuron. Whether they are going to ask you, we don't know. Or the gray matter, this will be the white matter, this will be the gray matter. I'll talk about this tomorrow. So guys, thank you. Yo, lapile batho basho. Then date 16/04/2024. Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow we are going to do activities, we are going to do question papers. That was it from me, Mr. People. Until we meet again, I'll be broko. Peace be unto you. Khotsong aibelilina mulalo be na batho bothe, kurhula kube nani. Peace.